how would a provisionist view of the five solas be compared to the Calvinist? I think there's a lot of similarities with the five solas, because I don't think the five solas are uniquely Calvinistic or Reformed in that regard of tulip theology. In other words, most Protestant, Calvinist as well as non-Calvinist, affirm the five solas. Now, I know I'm biased on this particular point because I'm a provisionist, but I think the five solas are stronger on provisionism than on tulip Calvinism. And I can make a case for that. Maybe I need to do a broadcast maybe just on that subject, because I think much could be said for that particular point. And the five solas, sola scriptura, which is that Scripture alone is our highest authority. Now, this can be misconstrued and made to mean something that it doesn't mean, like the Scripture is higher authority than God Himself, or that the Spirit's indwelling has no guidance or authority in our life. These kinds of things, and that's not the intention of sola scriptura. Scriptura alone talks about it, that this is the revelation given to us by God, and it is profitable for rebuke and counsel and direction, and that which the Spirit leads us would never contradict with that highest revealed authority of His inspired Word. And so when we're evaluating the truth claims of a particular doctrine, instead of going to this Council of Orange or some other human council or man-made terminology to find our authority, or to the Catholic Church or something of that nature to find our authority, or a pope or something like that to find authority, we go to the Scriptures. And now, obviously, the problem there is that you have people interpreting Scriptures differently, and people come to different conclusions with regard to the Scriptures, which I think is a result of free will. We have the freedom of the will. We have the freedom to make errors and make mistakes. On Calvinism, a true Calvinism qua Calvinism, the compatibilistic form of it at least, that affirms theistic determinism, every error that every Christian ever made theologically has been decreed unchangeably by God, and that seems untenable and irrational to me. Maybe it doesn't to the Calvinist who holds to that position, but it seems absurd to suggest, in my estimation, that God has sovereignly and unchangeably ordained for some of His children to misinterpret certain texts of Scriptures. I think the misinterpretations of Scripture are solely due to the shortcomings of humanity and the freedom of their will to make choices that are right and wrong when coming to understand the Bible. And so Scripture is our authority. Sola fide, or faith alone, sola gratia, grace alone, sola Christus, Christ alone, and sola Dei gloria, to God's glory alone. All of these I affirm. All of these I have no problem with. The part I would probably push back with the Calvinist is sola fide, faith alone, because if faith is a effectual result of regeneration, which is what the Calvinist typically claims, that regeneration by God's grace, God graciously chooses you before you're ever born for reasons that He doesn't reveal to us. He just picked you seemingly arbitrary. They don't like that term, but it seems arbitrary to me. Seemingly random. They wouldn't call it random. They would say in its accordance with His will or desire, but we don't know why He chooses one person over another. It's not revealed to us. It's a mystery. And so He's picked one person over another. And so I don't understand how sola fide, faith alone, really makes any rational sense on the Calvinistic view, because it should just be, you should just have four. It should be just grace alone, because you're not saved by grace through faith on Calvinism. You're saved by grace through grace on Calvinism, because you're saved by grace through God's grace to cause you to have faith. And in the same way He causes you to have faith, He also causes you to be baptized. He also causes your good works through His divine decree, through His sovereign acts and works in your life. And so why just sola fide? Why not sola baptism? Why not? I mean, if he's going to effectually cause your faith, which is a sign of what you've been saved, you've been regenerated, then why not just say, hey, sola baptism, sola good works? Why not just list everything that God sovereignly causes within the life of the Christian? If he's going to sovereignly cause through grace, sola gratia, God's grace, if he's going to solely cause you to have faith through that grace, then why not include everything that God causally determines or causes within the life of a true Christian? Because even Calvinists will argue, well, a true Christian is going to follow God. He's going to follow God by not only believing, but by being baptized, if it's all possible, and following him with good works and good deeds. They say this is a natural result of what comes from those who have truly been regenerated. Well, if faith is a result of being regenerated, and good works is a result of being regenerated, and baptism is a result of being regenerated, then why just say sola fide? Why not include everything that God sovereignly and unchangeably brings to pass? And so this is why the solas, I think, are more consistent on provisionism, because it is through faith. And notice I use the word through there. It's a means. It's like what we talked about with Brian Wagner when we talk about when you use the word through, it's like a tunnel. The tunnel has to exist to go through it. And so if you're saved by grace through faith, you're going through faith and you're believing so as to experience the salvific grace. You're not experiencing the salvific grace so as to go through the tunnel, okay? Faith precedes regeneration. In every instance in the Scripture, we see this, as we've talked about dozens of times on our program, John 20:31. These things were written, speaking the gospel. The gospel was written so that you may believe, and that by believing you may have life in his name. So how do you have life in his name? By believing. Jesus says in John 5, verse 40, to the Pharisees, you refuse to come to me so that you may have life. In other words, the reason you're not experiencing life is because you've refused to come to me. He doesn't say, I have refused to give you life so that you certainly would come to me, because that's not the order of salvation. The logical order, the biblical order of salvation has always been and always will be that we believe so as to be reborn. We're not reborn so as to believe. There's simply never any explicit didactic teaching that teaches that regeneration precedes new birth or precedes faith, which is why sola fide, or faith alone, does not make any rational sense in my estimation within the consistent Calvinistic framework. There's no reason to even talk about faith alone on Calvinism, because, like I said, faith is simply an effectual result of what grace has accomplished, in the same way that all your works are an effectual result of what grace accomplishes. And so you should be listing every single work, and baptism included, and every other thing that happens as a part of your solas, if you're going to include faith, because they all fall in the same category as far as I can tell. So.